The first era is the establishment of Andalus as a province within the broader Islamic empire. And this era begins in, very easy date to remember, especially the elders amongst you, maybe the youngsters don't know, but 711. 711 is the beginning of Islam in Andalusia. And we can go all the way to around 950 for first era. This is very broad, like basic introduction to Andalusian history. This is the establishment of Islam as an emirate, as a province. So Andalusia, Andalus, was a province within the broader Muslim empire. And of course, 711 is when Andalusia, it was called Andalusia by the way. The term Andalusia, by the way, it is from the Roman. And before that from the ancient local regions. One of the Germanic tribes invaded in ancient Roman times to this region. And that Germanic tribe, they were called the Vandals. Vandals. And every history student knows the Vandals. The Vandals invaded and conquered Andalus. The people of Andalus, the Spanish people, the original people, didn't have V. So they called the people that were invading Andalus, not Vandals, Andals. Andals. And when they called them Andals, then they called the land after them, the land of the Andals, Andalusia. That was in their region, in their language. So when the Muslims came, they took this name and they Arabicized it, Andalus. Andalus. This is where the term comes from Vandals. You all know what vandalism, the term vandalism, right? You all know what vandalism means, right? Why does vandalism come from Vandals? I'm a linguist as well. I love these little quirks of history. When the Vandals invaded a particular European city, the first thing they would do would be to deface and destroy iconic sites, vandalism. So the term vandalism comes from Vandals. And the term Andalusia is therefore linked to vandalism indirectly. Anyway, that's a little tidbit of history. So 711 is when the famous general Tariq ibn Ziyad, we all know the story, Tariq ibn Ziyad. He was a young general, maybe 19, 20 years old. Gathers together the forces, especially the Berber Arabs of North Africa, and they cross over the straits from Maghrib, from Morocco. They cross over, they land on that little land, the little island that probably didn't have a well-known name before. Jabal Tariq, it was called the Gibraltar as we call it now, Jabal Tariq. You can see Jabal Tariq from Morocco. From Morocco you can see Jabal Tariq, and from Jabal Tariq you can see Morocco. It's a two-way vision over there. And so he lands on Jabal Tariq, well known, and he begins conquering. Now why did he begin conquering this region? A number of stories are told. Most likely, one of the local kings by the name of King Roderick was greatly despised. This is a story that is found in our books of history. And one of his prime ministers revolted against the king. And he tried to do a coup d'etat against the king who everybody hated, the standard tyrannical king. He was caught and he was going to be executed. This prime minister managed to escape and flee for his life. And he fled down south to the land of the Umayyads, the Umayyad region in North Africa. And he went to the governor, Musa ibn Uqba, and he said to the governor, hey, I'm the prime minister. Coup d'etat failed. We hate our King Roderick. We are more than happy to let you invade. And you take over. We know you guys are going to have less taxes, more freedom. Pause here, footnote. There was a lot of religious tension between the Christians, as you're probably aware. And various segments of Christianity could not practice freely under other segments. And the Christians knew that the Muslims didn't care if you're Ahl Kitab, you're going to be able to worship. And they're not going to care which version of Ahl Kitab are you. So the prime minister basically comes, one of the main ministers, and says to the king, or says to the ruler Musa ibn Uqba, he says, look, you guys invade, and I'm going to be your guide. I'll tell you exactly what you need to do. I mean, he's the minister. He knows exactly what needs to be done, where to invade from, what's day, what forces, everything. He became a traitor to his king, thinking he's going to do good to his people, and it did bring good to his people. And that's why modern Western historians point out that when the Muslims, quote unquote, invaded, in reality, the people did not stop them from invading. The people of the land. That's why Tariq ibn Ziyad barely had, when he landed, he had a few thousand. And within a few months, he got another few thousand. You cannot conquer Europe with 10,000 people. It's not possible. You cannot conquer Spain with 10,000 people. It's not humanly possible. Tariq ibn Ziyad did it. Why and how? This is how Allah works. This is the junud Allah. وَمَا يَعْلَمُ جُنُودَ رَبِّكَ إِلَّا هُ. When Allah wants to do something, mysterious ways happen and beyond your control. There's no human way that a small army of 5,000 people initially, then another 5,000 reinforcements, can conquer the entirety of Spain. Because the Muslims, within 20 years, they reached Madrid. A lot of people don't know this. They reached Madrid. Madrid, way up there. They had all of Spain. They even reached 100 miles from Paris. A lot of people don't know this. The Muslim army reached all the way outside of Paris in a very famous battle called the Battle of Tours. And the Battle of Tours is when, long story short, that's when the Muslim progress into Europe was stopped, and the Muslims then basically receded back until they had the southern part of Spain. But for a few decades, they controlled not just Spain, all the way up to France. There was no pushback. The people wanted Muslims to come for one simple reason, not because they loved Islam per se, but they knew that Muslims would give them better justice and better system and less taxation and more freedoms. And in the end of the day, what does the average person want? Just the peace to live. They want society to allow them to live. And the Christians of that time frame fully knew that this king of ours under the Pope is not going to give us our religious freedoms. Their version of Christianity was slightly different. The sad reality, Andalus was not given the attention by the Umayyads that it deserved. Why is this the case? You're in Europe. Oh Umayyads, how can you not care about Andalus? Multiple reasons. First and foremost, Europe in 700 CE was literally one of the most backward places in the world. You have to understand, Europe was not something, civilization was not in Europe. London at the time probably had 5,000 people living in it, that's it. And London was still pagan, half of it was pagan. 700 CE, you still had, Christianity wasn't even the norm. You had pagan emperors and you had Christianity battling it out. So when we say Europe, you have to understand, Europe, it was nothing for the time frame. The civilization of the world was Byzantium, which is now Istanbul. That's where Eastern Europe Christianity, not Western. Again, long story, but Western Christianity, the Catholics and then the Protestants, Western Christianity only began to rise and gain dominance after the Crusades. Pre-Crusades, Western Christianity is nothing. It's not worth your attention. Why should the Umayyads pay attention? It's literally a backward land. Literally barbarians. The term barbarians comes from this. The Huns of Germany and the Vandals. These are a bunch of barbarians. Nobody cares. And then number two, the Umayyads had enough trouble in their side of the world as well. Back in Damascus, what's happening? In 710, 720, 730, the Abbasids are on the rise. And it's only a matter of time. 752, the Abbasids overtaken, the Umayyads got thrown over. Civil war as usual. This is the reality of politics, right? So the Umayyads have enough on their plates to deal with. They don't worry about Andalus. And so what happens? Andalus becomes somewhat of an independent principality. It's not given the attention it's due. And that's one of the main causes for why the Muslims did not go up north, believe it or not. Again, all of these what if moments in history. If the Umayyads had paid attention and understood the importance, it is very, very likely that all of Europe would be a Muslim land today.